Over a century ago, one of America's greatest success stories came to a crushing end. At the turn of the 20th century, the Greenwood District of Tulsa, Oklahoma, was more than 35 city blocks of thriving shops, hotels, theaters, and more. And all of them were Black-owned. The district was founded by Black men and women, many of whom were descendants of slaves, and it became known as Black Wall Street. Greenwood was home to doctors, lawyers, and entrepreneurs. For years, it was a beacon for African Americans looking to escape the discrimination and violence of the Jim Crow South and live a peaceful and safe life. But even in Greenwood, not everyone was safe. Racial tensions and violence with the neighboring white residents in Tulsa boiled over. And on May 31, 1921, a race massacre ensued, killing hundreds of Greenwood's residents and leaving the district in ashes. Black Wall Street had been burned to the ground. In this video, we are going to visit one of the most successful African-American towns in a period where segregation and racial discrimination hindered the Black process. We will go back to the Black Wall Street of Greenwood, Tulsa. At the turn of the 20th century, the Greenwood District of Tulsa, Oklahoma, became one of the first communities in the country thriving with Black entrepreneurial businesses. The prosperous town, founded by many descendants of slaves, earned a reputation as the Black Wall Street of America and became a harbor for African Americans in a highly segregated city under Jim Crow laws. The foundations of the Greenwood District and Black Wall Street were built in the 1830s when African Americans first migrated to Oklahoma. Many Black people had arrived as slaves to the Native American members of the Chickasaw, Choctaw, Cherokee, Creek, and Seminole tribes, who were forced to relocate from the southeastern U.S. to Oklahoma Territory as a result of President Andrew Jackson's Indian Removal Act. Following the end of the Civil War in 1865 and the ratification of the 13th Amendment, which called for the abolition of slavery, African Americans were granted citizenship and allotted plots of land where they could begin their new lives as free men and women. This land allocation led to a boom in all Black towns, including Greenwood. Between 1865 and 1920, the number of all Black towns and settlements grew to more than 50. Today, only 13 all-Black towns exist. To help these towns grow and attract new residents, some people took on the role of boosters, encouraging the migration of other African Americans seeking to escape the racial violence of the South. Oklahoma Territory, they would say, was a utopia for opportunity and freedom for Black people. One of these boosters was Edward P. McCabe, a former politician and state auditor of Kansas. McCabe's dream was to create an all-Black state in the Oklahoma Territory that was run by and for Black people. McCabe founded the town of Langston in Oklahoma and a newspaper, the Langston City Herald. He used the publication as a tool to promote his ideas about Black statehood. While McCabe's dream never materialized, it further fueled the creation of all Black towns in Oklahoma Territory, one of which would become known as Greenwood. The birth of Black Wall Street all started with 40 acres and a grocery store. Ottawa W. Gurley, better known as O.W. Gurley, was one of Tulsa's earliest settlers. Gurley traveled to the oil-rich city of Tulsa in 1905 from Arkansas and purchased 40 acres of land, on which he built the People's Grocery Store and a one-story rooming house. Gurley's grocery store and rooming house set the stage for the boom in Black entrepreneurial businesses that would follow. Greenwood was soon filled with restaurants, hotels, billiard halls, shoe stores, tailor shops, and more. The district's enterprising residents built their businesses for Black people, who were often barred or treated poorly in the nearby white establishments. Stringent segregation laws went into effect after Oklahoma became a state in 1907. This paved the way for Greenwood to become an insular hub for the Black dollar to circulate. Many of the Black residents earned and spent their money entirely within the confines of Greenwood. The result was one of the most affluent and wealthiest African American enclaves in the country. Among Greenwood's most prominent residents was J.B. Stratford. The son of an emancipated slave, Stratford was a lawyer who amassed his fortune through real estate. Among his many properties, he built the opulent Stratford Hotel, complete with 54 rooms and crystal chandeliers, providing a welcoming space for Black visitors. John and Lula Williams built and operated an auto repair garage, a confectionery, and a rooming house. But they were best known for building the famous Williams Dreamland Theater, which featured silent films and live musical and theatrical reviews that regularly attracted Black audiences. Simon Barry started a jitney service that catered to Greenwood's Black community, who were barred from using white taxi services. He also owned a hotel and started a bus service, and, as an experienced aviator, founded his own airline charter. But not everything was going well in Greenwood. Tensions between the Black and white residents of Tulsa had started rising. Whites had grown resentful of the Black wealth and success of the residents of Greenwood District. It all started after an elevator encounter between a 17-year-old white woman named Sarah Page and a 19-year-old Black man named Dick Rowland. It was alleged that Rowland had assaulted Page in the elevator, which he denied. But it didn't matter. News of a Black man's alleged assault of a white woman spread like wildfire throughout the white community of Tulsa, and tempers flared. As evening fell, an angry white mob was gathering outside the courthouse, demanding the sheriff hand over Rowland. Sheriff Willard McCulloch refused, and his men barricaded the top floor to protect the Black teenager. Around 9 p.m., a group of about 25 armed Black men, including many World War I veterans, went to the courthouse to offer help guarding Rowland. After the sheriff turned them away, some of the white mob tried unsuccessfully to break into the National Guard armory nearby. With rumors still flying of a possible lynching, a group of around 75 armed Black men returned to the courthouse shortly after 10 p.m., where they were met by some 1,500 white men, some of whom also carried weapons. After shots were fired and chaos broke out, the outnumbered group of Black men retreated to Greenwood. Over the next several hours, groups of white Tulsans, some of whom were deputized and given weapons by city officials, committed numerous acts of violence against Black people, including shooting an unarmed man in a movie theater. The false belief that a large-scale insurrection among Black Tulsans was underway, including reinforcements from nearby towns and cities with large African-American populations, fueled the growing hysteria. As dawn broke on June 1st, thousands of white citizens poured into the Greenwood District, looting and burning homes and businesses over an area of 35 city blocks. Firefighters who arrived to help put out fires later testified that rioters had threatened them with guns and forced them to leave. According to a later Red Cross estimate, some 1,256 houses were burned. 215 others were looted but not torched. 2 newspapers, a school, a library, a hospital, churches, hotels, stores, and many other Black-owned businesses were among the buildings destroyed or damaged by fire. By the time the National Guard arrived and Governor J.B.A. Robertson had declared martial law shortly before noon, the riot had effectively ended. Though guardsmen helped put out fires, they also imprisoned many Black Tulsans, and by June 2nd, some 6,000 people were under armed guard at the local fairgrounds. In the hours after the Tulsa race massacre, all charges against Dick Rowland were dropped. The police concluded that Rowland had most likely stumbled into Page or stepped on her foot. Kept safely under guard in the jail during the riot, he left Tulsa the next morning and reportedly never returned. All 35 city blocks of the Greenwood District had already been completely decimated. The Oklahoma Bureau of Vital Statistics officially recorded 36 dead. A 2001 State Commission examination of events was able to confirm 36 dead, 26 Black, and 10 white. The Red Cross reported that 1,256 homes and 191 businesses were destroyed, and 10,000 Black people were left homeless. But it's believed that as many as 300 people were killed. Survivors were left with nothing after their homes were looted, and $2.7 million in insurance claims were denied. For decades to follow, accounts of what happened in the summer of 1921 would remain largely unknown. Even by low estimates, the Tulsa Race Massacre stood as one of the deadliest riots in U.S. history, behind only the New York Draft riots of 1863, which killed at least 119 people. But the massacre didn't mark the end for Greenwood. In the years to come, as Black Tulsans worked to rebuild their ruined homes and businesses, and by 1942, the Greenwood District was home to more than 200 Black-owned businesses. For decades, there were no public ceremonies, memorials for the dead, or any efforts to commemorate the events of May 31st, June 1st, 1921. Instead, there was a deliberate effort to cover them up, The Tulsa Tribune removed the front-page story of May 31st that sparked the chaos from its bound volumes, and scholars later discovered that police and state militia archives about the riot were missing as well. As a result, until recently, the Tulsa Race Massacre was rarely mentioned in history books, taught in schools, or even talked about. Scholars began to delve deeper into the story of the riot in the 1970s after its 50th anniversary had passed. In 1996, on the riot's 75th anniversary, a service was held at the Mount Zion Baptist Church, which rioters had burned to the ground, and a memorial was placed in front of the Greenwood Cultural Center. The following year, after an official state government commission was created to investigate the Tulsa race riot, scientists and historians began looking into long-ago stories, including numerous victims buried in unmarked graves. In 2001, the report of the Race Riot Commission concluded that between 100 and 300 people were killed, and more than 8,000 people were made homeless over those 18 hours in 1921. A bill in the Oklahoma State Senate requiring that all Oklahoma high schools teach the Tulsa race riot failed to pass in 2012, with its opponents claiming schools were already teaching their students about the riot. According to the State Department of Education, it has required the topic in Oklahoma history classes since 2000 and U.S. history classes since 2004, and the incident has been included in Oklahoma history books since 2009. In November 2018, the 1921 Race Riot Commission officially renamed the 1921 Race Massacre Commission. Over a century since the Tulsa Race Massacre, there have been various efforts to rebuild and support Black entrepreneurs in the Greenwood area and address the historical violence that ensued in 1921. In 2018, the search for possible mass graves from the Tulsa Race Massacre was initiated. There have been at least 10 bodies discovered since the search began. In 2020, a lawsuit was filed by a group of Oklahomans demanding reparations for the 1921 Race Massacre. The suit was led by a 106-year-old survivor, Leslie Benningfield's mother, Randall, who was a little girl when the massacre took place. Other efforts underway included a $1 million fundraiser to rebuild Tulsa's historic Greenwood Commercial District led by Stephen Turner and Freeman Culver on behalf of the nonprofit Greenwood Community Development Corporation. Another initiative is Black Tech Street, founded by Tyrance Billingsley II, which seeks to offer education and opportunities to aspiring Black entrepreneurs and innovators in the area. The story of the Black Wall Street and the Tulsa Race Massacre is a tragic but important chapter in American history. It serves as a reminder of the systemic racism and violence that Black Americans have faced and continue to face in the United States. But it also highlights the incredible resilience and strength of the Greenwood community and the power of Black entrepreneurship and self-sufficiency. Thank you, and if you enjoyed this video, do not forget to like and subscribe.